Exposed, Billionaire's hidden affair revealed when his pregnant wife walked in with a lawyer. The city was alive with the glow of street lamps and the chatter of carefree souls. Inside their lavish penthouse, Mark stood, oblivious to the impending storm. Julia, her heart pounding, could feel a rush of thunderous doubts crashing inside her chest. She had sacrificed so much for their life together, yet the whispers of doubt had crept in like an unwanted shadow. What if the love they built on dreams was just a fragile facade? 6 weeks from their baby's arrival, Julia watched the city skyline from their balcony. The reflection of the skyline in her eyes wasn't the beautiful dream she had envisioned, it was a haunting figure filled with uncertainty. In rushed bursts, her mind replayed the phone call she had overheard, Mark's laughter mingling with another woman's voice. Her stomach churned. How could he? The thought alone twisted like a knife in her heart. She had stood by him during late nights, always believing in his drive. But betrayal loomed larger than hope. That evening, she gathered her courage. With the fierce Carla at her side, they left for the penthouse, Julia gripping the keys with white knuckles. A part of her screamed to run, but another urged her on. She needed answers. The opulence inside greeted her with sterile warmth, but it felt suffocating. Gold accents and expensive art hung around them, a stark contrast to the working-class background she cherished. How had it come to this? When he saw her, Mark's eyes widened with disbelief. Beside him stood a glamorous socialite, confidence radiating from her like a beacon in a dark sea. The scene froze, and Julia's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. His secret laid bare, stark and brutal. The walls that brought them together now loomed impossibly high. The air thickened with silence, punctuated only by her own shaky breaths. I trusted you, she finally whispered, her voice barely escaping. Julia felt a flood of emotions crash against her: betrayal, indignation, despair. She had always been the girl who worked hard, who dreamt of whisking her child away from the shackles of poverty. Tears spilled as she met Carla's fierce gaze, a quiet reminder of her own worth. This betrayal wasn't her fault. Behind the chaos of anger, she recognized the support that surrounded her. Friends whispered comfort and encouragement, family shared empathy and strength. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Yet each shattering moment drove her thoughts deeper into resilience and dignity. The facade Mark had perfected now felt like a prison. In that painful confrontation, surrounded by the echoes of their ambitious dreams, Julia grappled with every word exchanged. She was scared of the future, scared for herself and her coming child, but also aware of her strength, the kind that rose from the ashes of their shattered dream. Would she forgive him? Or would she choose a path toward justice for herself and her unborn child? Clarity was a slippery thing, and her heart raced not only with pain but anticipation. The choices ahead would redefine everything, setting the stage for the life she was ready to reclaim. Would Julia have the power to stand tall, even in the shadow of betrayal? The silence hung heavy, a fragile thing that threatened to shatter. Julia took a shaky breath, her mind spinning with disbelief. The glamorous woman beside Mark, perfectly poised and casual, only deepened the knife in her heart. Who was she? Had she meant anything to him at all? Mark opened his mouth, a feeble attempt to explain, but the words fell trapped in the air between them. Julia's eyes narrowed, and she could feel the heat rising in her cheeks. Anger surged within her, replacing the disbelief she'd felt moments before. I'm not here for your apologies, Mark, she said, her voice stronger than she expected. Carla stood beside her, arms crossed, silent but fierce. Together, they were a united front. Julia turned her gaze back to Mark, the man she thought she knew so intimately. "You've made your choice," she continued, fighting the tears that threatened to spill over. "And I won't be a part of this anymore." For a moment, his face flickered with a mix of regret and panic, but Julia refused to let that sway her. She had to think of her child, their future, one that no longer included the reckless promise of love he had once given her. Somehow, that truth steadied her. As she stood there, pregnant and vulnerable, she felt an unexpected wave of strength. Mark stepped forward, desperation etched on his features. "Julia, please, we can talk about this. I still love you." His words were a feeble attempt to pull her back into his world of deceit. The very idea of love from him felt empty now. It was just another layer to the lies she had swallowed for too long. "Love isn't built on betrayal, Mark," she spat, her emotions surfacing like a wave crashing against rocks. She felt Carla's hand on her back, an anchor, and it helped wash away a little of the hurt. As Julia took a step back, the realization hit her she was not powerless, she was capable of finding her own path. Carla leaned closer and whispered, "You deserve better than this, Jules. Together, we'll figure it out." In that moment, Julia saw a flicker of hope. But it was complicated, there were so many things left unsaid. She couldn't help but think about the life they had built, the dreams they had shared. Could they really just throw it all away? Her heart waged war against her determination. The choices ahead were daunting. As they turned to leave, Mark's words tumbled out of him almost like an afterthought. "Don't do this, Julia. I can change." Julia stopped in her tracks, confusion flooded her heart alongside anger. Was he genuine? Would he actually want to mend this, or was it merely a last-ditch effort to salvage his image? She felt battered by the compound emotions swirling inside her. Just moments before, she had felt resolute, but now uncertainty crept in like an unwanted guest. Turning around to face Mark one last time, she locked eyes with him, searching for sincerity. "You had your chance," she said, voice steady but filled with an undercurrent of sadness. "Now, I need to think of my child, not you." As they stepped out of the penthouse onto the bustling street, fresh air filled her lungs. It felt exhilarating, as if she was shedding the weight of betrayal. But what awaited her? How would she navigate the future alone with a child? The city buzzed around her, and in that moment, the path ahead was unclear. But she knew she had to face it. Mark's voice drifted behind her, begging, pleading, but she wouldn't look back. Every step felt like a small victory towards regaining control, but deep down, a new question lingered: would she be brave enough to pursue a life for herself and her baby, away from the man who had shattered her trust? Or would she find herself still tangled in the web he had spun for her? As she looked ahead, uncertainty enveloped her, but her heart swelled with anticipation. This was only the beginning. And when faced with the future, she realized it was her choice to make, not his. Would that choice finally give her the freedom she so desperately sought? The sharp chill of the evening air wrapped around Julia as she and Carla made their way down the crowded sidewalk. A cacophony of city life swirled around them, each honking horn and distant shout drawing her deeper into a world that felt foreign. With every step, adrenaline coursed through her veins. Julia could hardly process the day's events, let alone the course of her life suddenly thrown into disarray. "Jules, let's get some coffee," Carla suggested, her tone breezy, attempting to lighten the mood. But Julia felt far from light. "Yeah, I don't know," she replied hesitantly. The thought of small talk felt too exhausting. But then again, the comfort of hot coffee might ease the breaking tension within her. "Trust me," Carla insisted. "You need it. We need it. Besides, I'll pay." Turning into a cozy cafe, the warm glow from inside soothed Julia's frayed nerves. They found a small table by the window, sunlight streaming through and casting golden rays across the polished wood. As they settled in, thankfulness blossomed within her. Carla was a steadfast cornerstone in a life currently upturned. Moments later, 2 steaming mugs arrived, and her friend smiled encouragingly. "Now, spill it. I want to know what is swirling around in that head of yours." Julia took a deep breath. "I don't know, Carla, I just feel so lost. One minute I'm furious at Mark, and the next I'm second-guessing everything. Did I really know him? Why did he do this? And what about our baby?" "Julia," Carla interrupted gently, "you are so much more than just someone's partner. You're a mother now. You're fierce and you're strong, and whatever Mark did doesn't erase that. I want to be strong. But every time I think I have my bearings, it all falls apart again." Julia felt tears gather, but she blinked them away. "Not in public, not now. I can't keep feeling like this. I need to think ahead, but it's so hard without him." Silence settled between them for a moment, and Julia could see Carla wrestling with her own feelings too. "You know," Carla finally said, "I've seen you fight before. You've always been the one to step up when things get tough. This is just another battle. Maybe it's the biggest one yet. But with that baby coming, that is your motivation now." Julia took a sip of her coffee, letting the warmth seep into her. It was a simple pleasure, but in that moment, it felt monumental. "Look, I know it's scary," Carla continued. "But think about what you can build without him. You can create a beautiful life for both you and your child. A life that is true to you. But what if I can't do it alone?" Julia sighed, feeling the weight return to her shoulders. "What if I'm just not enough?" Carla leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "Are you kidding? You're already enough. You're a powerful woman, Jules. Embrace that power. The minute you let go of him and all the lies, that is when you'll start seeing things clearly." The truth in Carla's words resonated with her, stirring something deep inside. Julia could almost feel the flicker of hope lighting her path. "Maybe I do need to embrace this. But what if stepping away means I end up truly alone? Being alone isn't something to be afraid of. It can be a new adventure," Carla said with a smile. As they talked, Julia began to envision a future that didn't revolve around Mark's choices. Whether as a single mother or someone striving to find her footing, the path could be her own. The cafe buzzed with chatter, laughter echoing through the air. Hope started to grow roots in Julia's heart, a fragile yet undeniable spark. But just then, the front door swung open, and a figure stepped inside. Julia's heart sank in her chest when she recognized the tall, familiar silhouette. Mark stood there, eyes scanning the room. A rush of emotions crashed over her, and she froze. What was he doing here? Did he come to apologize? The moment hung in the air, heavy with tension. Would she stand her ground, or would this unwelcome encounter pull her back into the tempest she'd just begun to escape? The promise of clarity and strength teetered on the edge. She needed to take a stand one way or another. The next few moments could change everything. Julia's breath caught in her throat as Mark's eyes landed on her across the cafe. Time seemed to slow, twisting every heartbeat into a drumroll of uncertainty. He looked different, his hands shoved deep in his pockets, his hair slightly disheveled, but that familiar glint in his eyes remained stubbornly unchanged. What is he doing here? She whispered, half to herself and half to Carla, who shifted uncomfortably in her seat. I don't know, but I think you should, Carla began, her voice edged with urgency. No, I can't. Not now, Julia interjected, feeling trapped between her instincts and the weight of Mark's presence. The world beyond their little window faded, and all that mattered was the man who was supposed to be by her side but had chosen to plunge her life into chaos. Mark's gaze intensified as he walked toward her, uncertainty warring with determination in each step. Julia noticed people turn to steal glances, curious about the unfolding drama, and suddenly she felt as exposed as a raw nerve. "Julia," Mark called out softly as he approached, a layer of vulnerability in his tone. She wished she could drown out the whispers in her head saying that maybe, just maybe, he had finally learned something from his mistakes. But her heart clenched with all the anger and confusion that had built up like a dam ready to burst. "You shouldn't be here," she said, forcing the words out, her voice laced with emotion. "Please, can we just talk?" He glanced at Carla, who remained seated with a fierce protectiveness, as if she had every right to shield Julia from him. The cafe felt smaller now. The chatter and clinking of mugs faded into white noise. "Talk." Julia's voice rose slightly, full of disbelief. "What is there to talk about, Mark? You made your choices. You left us. How can you just walk in here like nothing happened? I know I messed up. I came to find you. I just want to explain." His voice trembled slightly, and for a fleeting moment, Julia felt a twinge of pity. But pity wasn't enough. "You have nothing to explain." Julia shot back, her pulse quickening. "You were supposed to be my partner, my support, and you turned your back on me when I needed you most." "Julia, please." He stepped closer, the desperation in his eyes pleading with her. "I'm not the enemy here. The last thing I wanted was to hurt you." Those words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. "You hurt me the minute you chose to lie, Mark. And now you want to change that with a few heartfelt excuses." Her voice shook as she fought back tears, battling the internal storm she could feel brewing. "Let us just sit down, okay?" he urged gently, the edge of panic creeping into his tone. "Just hear me out." "Why should I?" Carla exclaimed, her fierce loyalty surfacing in a protective stance. "You've done enough damage. It's time you let her go." "Carla," Julia whispered, uncertain. "Jules, remember what we talked about. You're strong. You don't owe him anything." Carla's eyes shone with determination. Julia's mind raced, caught in a tug-of-war between her grief and the hope of a reconciliation she had never thought possible. There was a part of her that wanted to hear him out, to confront the ghost of their love and see if there was still a flicker left. But could she trust him? And if she opened that door, would it lead her back to his arms or further into despair? The noise of the cafe faded as she contemplated her next move. The world spun around her, and it felt like just moments ago she was ready to reclaim her life. But everything hinged on what happened next. "Julia, just one chance," Mark urged, extending his hand like a lifeline. As the air thickened with memories and what-ifs, Julia felt her heart race anew. What was going to happen now? Would she take a step toward clarity or get lost in the chaos once again? The weight of the moment pressed down, she could feel her courage wavering, and as she searched his eyes, the flickering flame of hope began to flicker away. Was this really the moment that would change everything, or the moment that would drag her back under? The cafe felt charged, electric with anticipation. Julia's heart thundered in her chest. Every second stretched, each one underscoring the stakes that hung in the air between them. Mark stood there, waiting, his hand still raised as if it could somehow pull her into a safe harbor from the storm of feelings threatening to engulf her. "Step back," Julia demanded suddenly, her words more forceful than she expected. She hugged her arms around herself, trying to ward off not only the chill from the air conditioning but also the flood of memories that threatened to overwhelm her. "I don't need your pity." "It's not pity," he rushed out, his voice surprisingly steady. I just want to explain myself. I owe you that. I owe you everything." Julia felt her resolve crack slightly at his words, but she shook her head sharply. "Everything. You walked away, Mark. You didn't just disappoint me, you shattered my trust. So what could you possibly say now to fix years of what you broke? The patrons nearby had turned to watch, their whispers brushing against her like a cold draft. Julia felt exposed, her past laid bare before them. She cast a fleeting glance to Carla, who wore an expression of unwavering support mixed with concern. But even that comfort couldn't shield her from Mark's gaze, which seemed to pierce right through her defenses. A flicker of doubt crept in, urging her to reconsider. What did she really want? Part of her craved answers necessary closure, perhaps. Another part screamed for solitude, for distance from him and the hurt he carried like baggage. Please, just one chance, Mark said again, his voice dropping to a whisper, desperation lacing every syllable. I'll take full responsibility for what I've done, but I need you to listen. Julia narrowed her eyes, weighing his words like heavy stones on a scale. Every moment she hesitated felt like a dangerous gamble. What is stopping you from running away again if I give you this chance? I'm not that person anymore, he insisted, taking a cautious step forward, his hand lowering, palm out. I've done a lot of thinking, Julia. I've learned from my mistakes. I just want to prove to you that I can be better. That I can be the man you deserve. Another volley of emotion surged through her. Hope battled bitterness, longing intertwined with a fear of vulnerability. What if he really had changed? What if he hadn't? Don't say things you can take back, Carla interrupted, her voice firm but her eyes pleading. You deserve someone who is never going to leave you in the first place. Julia's breath caught again, this time from the echoing truth of Carla's words. She could feel the walls of her heart yearning to guard against another possible betrayal. But her heart also craved honesty, vulnerability, the possibility of rebuilding from the rubble. Just sit down with us, Mark, Julia finally said, her own voice trembling slightly as she took a tentative step toward him. But if you really want to talk, then it has to be the truth. No more lies. Relief flooded Mark's features as he nodded, a flicker of genuine gratitude shining through the storm. He glanced at Carla, who still looked skeptical but held her tongue, letting Julia forge her own path forward. As they settled into the corner booth, time shifted, and everything around them faded into a blur, a backdrop to their conversation that was about to unfurl. But deep down, Julia could feel the uncertainty still gnawing at her. Was this the first step toward healing, or would it lead to heartbreak once more? As Mark took a deep breath, his eyes seeking hers with a flicker of what felt like hope, Julia realized that she was standing at a crossroad, and behind each door lay a vastly different future. Was she ready to unlock the gate to an uncertain path, or would she choose to walk away for good? Julia slid into the booth, the plastic seat squeaking under the pressure. She felt trapped in a fishbowl, the myriad of eyes continuing to hover over them. As Mark slid in across from her, the air weighed heavy with unspoken words. Carla sat beside Julia, her presence like a shield, radiating solidarity. Julia could sense the burning curiosity in the cafe, patrons whispering, trading glances as if they were watching a live drama unfold. She wished she could crawl under the table, escape the spotlight. But here she was, forced into confrontation, whether she felt ready or not. Okay, Julia said, her voice steady but quiet, if we're doing this, we start from the beginning. She folded her arms tightly, as if to physically guard herself against the painful truth swirling in the air. Mark looked as though he had been holding his breath. All right. I know it's been years, but I want to tell you about the day I left. His voice was softer now, raw with earnestness. It wasn't just about me. There was so much going on. I felt like I was suffocating. I didn't know how to handle it. So, I ran. I don't get it, Julia interrupted, her patience wearing thin. You just left. You disappeared, and I was left picking up the pieces. That is what you want to explain? Running away? No, he insisted, shaking his head. I don't expect you to understand. But the truth is, there were so many decisions I made that hurt you. It's not just about that moment. It's about everything that came before it. I thought leaving would help. I thought it would take the pressure off us both. But it only made it worse. A pang of pain shot through Julia. Every word he spoke felt like a knife twisting in her heart. Mark, do you even realize how selfish you were? A phone call, a message. Anything could have changed things. I know, he whispered, his eyes reflecting remorse. I know that now. I was terrified. I thought if I stayed I would ruin us both. But stepping out that door, it killed me. Julia's heart ached. If it hurt you so much, why did you stay gone? Because I thought I could fix myself. I thought time apart would help, he said, anguish evident in his expression. But it just made me realize what I lost. Every day, I carried the guilt of not being there for you, the pain of not being the man you needed. As Julia listened, the bubble of hope and bitterness grew tighter within her. Memories washed over her. She felt like a ship at sea, navigating through choppy waters. You're saying you've changed, but how do I know you want to just repeat history? Trust isn't built overnight. The wall around her heart flickered, letting in the tiniest glimmer of light, but only if she could see his commitment. Mark leaned in, his voice dropping into a sincere plea. I want to go to therapy. I want to work on my issues. I am willing to put in the hard work to be better for you. For us. The tension thickened, and Carla reached for Julia's hand, squeezing it reassuringly. Julia swallowed hard, looking back at Mark. And how do I know you won't run again when things get tough? Because I can't lose you again. I've already lost you once, and I don't want to make that mistake a second time, he said, an urgency in his voice that pulsed with raw emotion. The chime of a bell echoed from the door as a new patron entered, breaking her focus. Julia's heart raced, the pressure of Mark's words weighing heavy in her chest. Could she truly trust him again? What if she took this leap and fell flat? As silence stretched between them, Mark's expression turned tentative, the hope in his eyes colliding with her doubt. Just tell me, he said quietly. What do you need from me? Julia felt the intensity of that moment. She was at a fork in the road once more. Would she open that door to forgiveness? Or was it time to finally close the chapter on them for good? Every nerve in her body screamed for clarity as she struggled to find the right words, pushing forth the decision that could change everything. Deep down, she sensed the truth looming on the horizon. For Julia, the moment of truth was about to arrive, and with it, the chance to rewrite their story. Would she embrace the risk or run away one last time? The cafe was holding its breath, waiting for Julia's response. The lights overhead flickered for a moment, as if sharing in her confusion. Carla's hand tightened around Julia's, a lifeline in a sea of uncertainty. Julia could almost feel the weight of the moment crush her, heavier than that familiar ache in her heart. Mark, she started, her voice a tremor. What do I even say to that? You say you want to change, but this isn't just about promises. It's about trust that you shattered. Mark's expression was pained, the shadow of regret crossing his face. I know I messed up. I really do. But I'm asking for a chance to prove I can be the person you need. And what if you can't? The question slipped from her lips before she could hold it back. What if we get back to square one, and I'm left picking up the pieces again? Then I'll go back to therapy, he shot back, his voice sharp but laced with sincerity. I'll do whatever it takes. Just please, don't walk away. Please give me a chance to show you I'm serious. His plea hung in the air, warm and inviting yet terrifying, like stepping out onto a high wire. Carla leaned in closer, her voice low but insistent. "Julia, listen to him. You know this isn't the Mark you knew years ago. People grow, they change. But you've got to be willing to meet him halfway." Julia's heart raced at Carla's words. Could this new version of Mark really be credible? The memories of late-night arguments, slamming doors, and unreturned calls streaked through her mind. But there were moments of laughter too, of joy that felt so far away now, buried beneath layers of hurt. "We have history," Julia finally said, treading carefully. "But history can twist into a noose if we can't find a way to let it go." She met Mark's gaze, searching for any sign of the boy she used to know behind the men before her. "So, what does moving forward look like, for both of us?" "Moving forward means confronting all of it," Mark replied, his voice firm, almost desperate. "I want to make amends for everything. I want to relive those moments like laughter in a cafe while admitting my mistakes. I want to make sure we build it on honesty and therapy and trust this time." Julia felt the pull of her emotions battling within her, a tidal wave crashing against a crumbling cliff. "Honesty, it's what I've needed. But what if you end up regressing? I can't do it again. I promise, Julia. If I ever feel myself slipping back, I'll reach out. I'll let you know," he said, his voice resolute. The cafe felt deafeningly silent, eyes still glued to them, but it felt like they were in their own world where just the two of them existed. The clinking of utensils, the murmurs of other patrons faded into white noise. Julia took a breath, each inhalation an uphill battle. She wished for clarity, but all she had was swirling thoughts. "Finally," she whispered, "maybe we can try. But not just the surface stuff. It has to be raw. If we put this past behind us, I need total transparency, no hiding." As she spoke, Mark's face softened, relief flooding his features. "Thank you. That is all I ask for. Let us uncover everything together, however painful. I'm in it for the long haul." Even as she began to feel a flicker of hope, unease settled in the pit of Julia's stomach. Breaking down the walls around her heart wouldn't be easy. "I'll hold you to that," she said firmly, hoping her determination was as palpable as his desire to change. Before the heaviness could settle back in, the door swung open again, a swirl of cold air rushing in. An unexpected figure entered, looking lost and bewildered. Julia's heart stopped as she recognized the woman, Sarah, Mark's ex-girlfriend. "Mark? Is that you?" Sarah's eyes darted between them, surprise mingling with something darker. "What is going on?" Julia felt a cold sweat trickle down her back, fear pulsing through her. What now? Was this about to unravel everything they just began to rebuild? The tension in the cafe thickened as Julia's mind raced. For a brief second, she felt paralyzed, caught in a whirlwind of emotions. Mark was standing right there, his face pale as he processed Sarah's sudden appearance. His eyes darted from Julia's startled expression to the shocked look on Sarah's face. What are you doing here?" he finally stammered, a hint of panic tinging his voice. I need to talk to you," Sarah said, her voice taut with emotion. "It's important." Julia felt the heat rising in her cheeks. The moment she had agreed to give Mark another chance now felt fragile, hanging by a thread. She tightened her grip on Carla's hand, needing that familiar warmth, that unyielding support as uncertainty flooded her thoughts. "Why now?" Mark challenged, folding his arms defensively. "You walked away, remember?" "I didn't just walk away," Sarah exclaimed, her voice sharp, eyes beginning to glisten. "You left me without any explanation. I need closure, Mark. I deserve that much." The entire cafe seemed to hold its breath, patrons exchanging whispers, glancing over with interest, some even raising their phones to capture the unfolding drama. Julia felt exposed, like all her hopes and fears were laid bare before the very eyes she wished wouldn't be there. Closure? Mark echoed. What about the closure you never gave me when you chose to go? I've changed, Sarah. I'm trying to move on. Julia couldn't look at Mark, the sharp edge in his voice cut deeper than anything she had felt from him before. She shifted in her seat, feeling the weight of the moment crush her once again. Julia, Mark began, but she shot him a warning glare. This wasn't a conversation for him to steer. She had to reclaim her voice. I don't know what this is about, Julia managed, steadying her voice. I think we're trying to have a conversation here, one that doesn't involve old wounds. Sarah, if this really is important, how about you let us finish what we started? Sarah hesitated, taken aback by Julia's resolve. I just didn't expect to see you here with him. I thought you deserved the truth, that you'd want to know why he enough. Julia interjected, frustration bubbling over. This isn't the time or place. If you have something to say, let us do this when it's not a spectacle. Mark's eyes flicked between the two women, revealing a storm brewing inside him. We can't know, Julia said sharply, her voice rising above the din of the cafe. You can't keep deflecting. You chose me, Mark. You're trying to make things right with me, and I want to see where this goes. But not like this. Sarah's eyes simmered for a moment, not quite ready to back down. But I still have things to say. You need to hear them. Does this involve the truth? Mark asked, his voice low now, almost threatening. Because I'm trying to come clean, and if this is another attempt to draw me back into old dramas, I want to have it. Another figure in the cafe shifted, a grandmother stifling a gasp, while a teenager near the window tried to record the moment on her phone, anticipation hanging thick in the air. Julia felt her heart race as she wondered if they'd ever leave this moment behind. Fine, Sarah relented, crossing her arms defensively. If you truly believe the past is in the past, maybe I'll just go. Mark's expression softened slightly, a hint of sympathy breaking through as he watched her. You don't have to leave upset, Sarah. But this isn't the place to bring it all up. The tension cracked slightly, but the storm in Julia's mind still swirled. Maybe we need to revisit this, Julia said quietly, weighing her words carefully. Not just about Mark and you, but what we all need moving forward. Together? Mark asked tentatively, uncertainty in his eyes. A flicker of hope sparked deep within Julia, though anxiety tangled with it. Together, she echoed, wondering if they were ready to face this tangled web of emotions. But was it truly possible for them to forge a new path, or would they be doomed to repeat the same mistakes? The cafe buzzed with murmurs, the spotlight now on them, and the answers felt painfully out of reach. Julia could feel every gaze in the cafe digging into her, piercing through her resolve. The whispers drifted, intermingling with the clinking of cups and the low hum of the espresso machine. She couldn't ignore them, nor could she ignore the storm brewing within her. Mark's face still showed a cocktail of confusion and regret, but Sarah stood firm, her arms still crossed defiantly. What do we want, then? Sarah finally asked, her voice changing from desperation to tactical calm. What is the way forward? Mark looked at Julia. The connection between them felt both fragile and electric, teetering on the edge of something monumental. We need to be honest. I think honesty is the only way to move past this. Julia nodded slowly, but a trepidation gripped her heart. Was she ready to hear what honesty might expose? Honesty about what? She asked, trying to sound steady, but the tremble in her voice betrayed her. About everything, Mark said, impatience lacing his tone. About how things fell apart, how I felt. Sarah let out a sharp breath. Fine, but what about me? Do I get a chance to talk? I didn't just come back to drag you both down. I need resolution too. Resolution? Julia echoed, her pulse accelerating. Resolution for what? The past is the past, and we all made choices. Choices that hurt people, Mark interjected, pain clouding his eyes. Choices that I thought were right but clearly aren't anymore. The cafe seemed to shrink, reality shrinking back as the enormity of the situation bore down on them. Julia's heart raced, her palms sweating against the cool table. She wanted to break free from this moment, but it felt almost impossible. Can we at least agree to not yell? Julia suggested, hoping to steer the emotional ship away from the cliff's edge. We are all here, let us respect each other, okay? For the first time, Sarah seemed to soften. Okay. Then tell me, Mark. What was it that had you so scared to talk to me? Her voice was quieter now, almost pleading. Mark ran a hand through his hair, and for an instant, he looked weary. I was scared to confront my own mistakes. I thought running away was an answer, but it wasn't. Not for anyone. Not for you or for Julia. Julia could feel the weight of his words pressing against her chest. Was this the moment? The moment she'd waited for, the moment she wasn't sure she could handle. Maybe it would help if we can just lay it all out, Julia said, her heart pounding in time with the ticking clock on the wall. If we can admit our fears, maybe we can build something new. Are you sure you want to build something with him? Sarah asked suddenly, eyeing Julia with both challenge and a hint of respect. You have every right to walk away. But I don't want to, Julia answered softly. I care about him. I do. She turned to Mark, searching for something in his eyes, reassurance perhaps, or an understanding that echoed her own. Mark stepped a little closer. And I care about both of you, so I'll be honest. I'm afraid. Afraid of what I've done, and afraid of what is next. But I want to try. Please, let us try. Just then, the door of the cafe swung open, flooding the room with fresh air. A gust blew in, a rush of movement that seemed to change the atmosphere entirely. Julia caught a glimpse of a familiar face that sent a shiver down her spine, a face she hadn't seen in years until Julia, there you are. You didn't call what is going on. Her heart sank. It was her mother, standing at the entrance, eyes wide with concern, scanning the charge scene. Mom! Julia exclaimed, panic suddenly washing over her. How would she explain this mess? How would they all weave their truth into one narrative that wasn't a disaster? As the eyes of the cafe shifted, uncertainty gripped Julia once more. Where would they go from here? Would the past finally catch up, or was this the beginning of something new? The cafe buzzed with a mix of anticipation and tension as Julia blinked at her mother, who stood frozen, absorbing the scene unfolding before her. Her entrance had shifted everything, and Julia felt her heart race. Mom! What are you doing here? Julia forced herself to speak, her voice trembling with confusion. I came looking for you. I was worried. Why didn't you call? Her mother's voice was heavy with concern, eyes darting nervously between Mark and Sarah, not fully grasping the emotional turmoil at play. Julia felt the heat rise in her cheeks. It's complicated. Each word felt like it struggled to surface, until she finally exploded. Mark and I are trying to have a conversation. Are you sure it's safe? Her mother asked, an edge of protectiveness in her tone. Julia's breath hitched at the implication. Yes, it felt unsafe, but staying trapped in the past couldn't be the answer. Mom, please. I need to handle this. Mark looked down, the weight of failing to convince Julia's family heavier than any betrayal he'd felt. Sarah crossed her arms, irritation simmering, clearly not willing to back down. But Julia, pregnant and exhausted, felt the storm within her surge all at once. Taking a deep breath, she straightened her back and focused on control. "Mom, I need you to listen," Julia began, catching her mother's gaze. "You always taught me how to stand tall, how to advocate for myself. There's been a lot happening, and I need you to support me in this." Her mother's stance softened slightly, as if realizing this was a moment of transformation for her daughter. "All right," she said cautiously. "But I want to understand. We're trying to figure out how to move forward," Julia continued, her voice stronger now, infused with the determination that had been building within her. "Mark wants to change. He has accepted responsibility for his actions, and he is trying." "Oh, really? Is that so?" Sarah chimed in, skepticism dripping from her tone. "I can't just ignore the history, Julia. He hurt both of us." Julia felt a ripple of defensiveness rise within her. "I understand, Sarah, but if we truly want to move forward, we need to be ready to confront the past instead of letting it dictate the future." "Exactly," Mark added, nodding, as if he was finally seeing Julia's perspective. "I realize it won't be easy. I've hurt you, and for that, I'm deeply sorry. But I'm here now, ready to face whatever it takes." The weight of their shared past hung heavily in the air, palpable and suffocating. But the more Julia spoke, the more clarity emerged. "We all deserve closure. We need to break free from this cycle. Mom, I want to build a life that encompasses strength and honesty. I want my child to see resilience, not fear." Her mother's expression softened further. "I just want you to be happy, Jules." "I know," Julia replied, feeling tears prick at her eyes. "But happiness isn't just handed to us, is it? It's a choice. Right now, I have to prioritize my needs, my child's needs. And that means embracing what I've learned from our past." Mark's eyes widened, a spark of recognition igniting within them. "Julia, what if we all sat down together? All three of us. Hear each other out and, hopefully, begin to heal together." Sarah's surprise echoed in the cafe, as though the word was a foreign language. "Can we do it? Perhaps if we have honest dialogue, we can lessen the shadows that loom over the situation." Mark's vulnerability spoke volumes. Julia felt the warmth of that honesty spreading through her, urging her to seize the moment. "Okay," Julia said, feeling a sense of unity forming despite the tumultuous history. "Let us do it." She turned to her mother, who nodded tentatively yet resolutely. "We can change what has happened, but we can shape this into something new," Julia stated firmly. "I want to be the first to truly step into the light and own my future." With shared breath, they began to express their emotions: fear, regret, hopes for the future. It was still messy, but in that space, Julia realized they were working toward clarity. It felt like unwrapping layers from a beautiful gift, meant to shine but had been hidden away for too long. In the back of her mind, though, Julia noted the whispers of the cafe patrons, a reminder of the audience her life had become. She felt raw and vulnerable, yet incredibly empowered. Whatever happened next, it wouldn't spiral out of control. She was steering this ship now. As evening turned to night, clarity emerged, joining their voices into a chorus of honesty. Julia's heart beat steadily in her chest. She was ready to take charge not just for herself, but for her child. Hope blossomed amidst uncertainty, and though every truth came with a weight, they held it together. This was her moment, her choice, and she was finally ready to embrace the future, step by vulnerable step. As the chatter of the cafe faded and their voices strengthened, Julia realized she wouldn't just be reclaiming her life, she was stepping into the light, knowing she had the power to drive her destiny forward not just for her, but for her child. With newfound resolve, the cluttered emotions swirled to genuine clarity. She accepted her mother's supportive hand, Mark's sincere gaze, and even Sarah's tentative understanding. Together, they were daring to navigate down the path of healing, redefining their lives one courageous conversation at a time. Now, more than ever, Julia felt she could persist, confident in the truth she carried into the future. Was this the moment she had long searched for? Yes. As her heart filled with hope, she held tightly to the realization that the power to reshape their futures rested firmly within her grasp, ready to be embraced with open arms. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment below what you thought about this ending and how it made you feel. And don't wait not even one more second. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation.